Albert Einstein once said, "An empty stomach is not a good political advisor." Are we Sri Lankans in an empty stomach when it comes to politics? Hello there and a very good evening. My name is Zulfiq Farzan. You're joining Vantage Point, and with me today as usual is Dr. Dayan Jatilaka. Good evening, Doctor.
Good evening, Zulfiq.
Doctor, one key word is making its rounds in Sri Lankan society right now, and that is not a Sri Lankan word, not a word that we Sri Lankans are very familiar with, but a word that is familiar across the world. That's Hitler.
Ah, yes, Hitler, yes.
So we've had this discussion going on about Gotabaya Rajapaksa being compared to Hitler, and that we need a military-style rule in Sri Lanka. You've been a diplomat. You've been all over the world. You've been serving under different administrations. Is this what Sri Lanka needs right now?
Well, Zulfiq, when you were in school, or when I was in school, or any kid in any school anywhere in the world, sometimes has to enter these competitions where you're given the topic at the last moment before you go up onto the stage and you make a speech. And anywhere in the world, if a child were given a question or the topic, the most evil leader in world history, and you just had 3 minutes, you had to go up there and speak spontaneously. I think 99.9% of children throughout the world, from, I don't know, the United States to China, would immediately think of Adolf Hitler.
The Führer.
The Führer. Because Hitler is quite rightly the epitome of evil, of political evil in world history. He is quite rightly, universally acknowledged as the most cruel, the worst ever despot, not only because of personal qualities and behavior, nor even because of World War II alone, but because of the system of rule, fascism, which was originated by Mussolini in Italy, but was taken to a new low or new height, depending on how you put it, by Nazi Germany. So Hitler is the worst. You can't interpret it any way. Facts are facts. Reality is reality, and that includes historical reality. That chair is a chair. It doesn't matter whether you come at it from a Buddhist perspective, a Christian perspective, a Hindu perspective, an Islamic perspective, a Marxist-Leninist perspective, or whatever. The chair is a chair. Hitler is the epitome of political evil. The most cruel ruler of modern times, of documented modern history. Now, there is no excuse for any person to invoke Hitler, and if he or she has done so, there's no way to airbrush it and say, well, he really didn't mean that. What he meant was something else.
We've been seeing that happening over the past few days.
And, anywhere in the world, if somebody mentions Hitler in an uncritical manner, unless they belong to a neo-Nazi fringe organization, which is banned in most countries, there's shock and horror and revulsion. Decent, civilized people, anywhere in the world, irrespective of culture, irrespective of religion, find Hitler to be absolutely evil. There's no way around it. You can't finesse fascism. So, let us take the original, the homily or the sermon. Now, one of the excuses I've heard recently is, it was a private thing. Well, if it was private, what were the TV cameras doing there? How did it get onto the television news? How do you and I know about it? Because it was not private. If it's private, next time, keep the television cameras out. But if the television cameras are there and it's gone out into the public discourse, then don't say it's private, it's public. The next thing is that you cannot excuse it away by saying, no, the intention was that that you need a strong leader, a leader who is, well, it didn't even say strong because the Sinhalese term is Shaktimat, that's strong. Riju means erect or direct. Well, then the only thing that the Venerable Anunayaka had to say to Mr. Rajapaksa, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, is people call you a Hitler. All I can tell you is be like your brother Mahinda Rajapaksa. Be a strong leader, but righteous and flexible as well. Strong is not the same as being a dictator. So, when there is the example of Mahinda Rajapaksa, who was seated there, and that's the best possible advice that one can give Gotabaya, if he is interested in leading the country. Learn from Mahinda, be like Mahinda, do what Mahinda cannot do, because there's a constitutional constraint. But if you want to use some international example, surely the Venerable Anunayaka could have said, be like Russia's Putin, or Turkey's Erdogan, or China's Xi Jinping. Why use the name of the world's worst leader of modern times? Even if it is because some people call Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa Hitler. Now, I had never known that, but that's what the Venerable Anunayaka said. Some people call you a Hitler. Well, be like a Hitler if you have to and remold the country. Now, Zulfik, we know how Buddhism came to Sri Lanka. It was Arhat Mahinda. Arhat Mahinda was the son of Emperor Ashoka. The Ashokan era was the golden age of Buddhist civilization. Now, Emperor Ashoka was known as Chanda Ashoka because he had killed large numbers of people during the wars. He was a member of the Maurya clan, and large numbers of people had been exterminated. And he had a troubled mind about it. And he encountered a Buddhist monk. And it was that encounter that converted him to Buddhism, and that is how you have this splendid era of Buddhist civilization, and how Ceylon, Sri Lanka, received Buddhism through the agency of Arhat Mahinda, Ashoka's son. Now, Ashoka was called Chanda Ashoka, meaning violent Ashoka. The Buddhist monk did not tell Chanda Ashoka, look, if people call you Chanda Ashoka, that's all right. I mean, be Chanda Ashoka if you have to. And this country has been ravaged by war because, there's nothing like Sri Lanka's war. India, millions had died in that war, in those wars. He didn't say, look, that's okay, rebuild India, be Chanda Ashoka. On the contrary, he directly intervened to convert Chanda Ashoka into Dharma Ashoka.
Chanda Ashoka to Dharma Ashoka.
Dharma Ashoka.
Doctor, I need to interrupt you one brief moment because we are going to continue this conversation right after this short commercial break. Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is Vantage Point, and we were discussing the word Hitler and also about Dharma Ashoka. Doctor, I apologize for interrupting you earlier, but continuing on this conversation about Dharma Ashoka and how Chanda Ashoka became Dharma Ashoka, this word Hitler, which is going around in society right now, how far would it benefit our people?
It's terrible. It's the worst thing I've ever heard. I mean, I've chosen to live in this country all my life. I mean, I've been abroad for years at different times.
The reason I asked that question, Doctor, is because now there are different interpretations coming out regarding that word, saying that it was not the original meaning that was given.
Well, Zulfik, that's even more disgusting than using the term, because there is no other meaning of Hitler.
Exactly.
Hitler is the worst, and I mean, he's associated with the concentration camps. This was before World War II. The first concentration camp was set up in 1933. When he was elected, by the way, he was elected, and he became the Führer. So, that's a system of rule that is the worst in the world in modern times. So there is no soft peddling it. What other interpretation? As I said, if it's to have a strong ruler, why not mention Mahinda Rajapaksa as an example? Or why not mention Putin if you wanted another example? Why pick the worst guy to ever rule a country in known recorded modern history?
Some interesting thoughts there, Doctor. Keeping on that topic, and we are talking about Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who has been referred to as the Fugue. There are questions now coming out whether Gotabaya Rajapaksa is going to be fielded as the presidential candidate by the Mahinda Rajapaksa camp. So he's a US citizen. Now he's accepted that he's a US citizen. So can he be fielded as a candidate?
Well, that's a matter of the United States law. Under normal circumstances, you can just unplug your citizenship, but there could be complications. So I don't know. I'm not competent enough to speculate. But what I do know are two things. One, there's a tremendous sort of psychological warfare campaign targeting Mahinda Rajapaksa, trying to force his hand. I mean, that's almost a psychological coup to try to push him into nominating Gotabaya. Now, I'm not saying it's done by Gotabaya. It's not, because he's not that kind of guy.
So it's an unseen force that is
doing this. It's seen. There's nothing unseen about it. It's the extremists around Gotabaya.
Right.
A combination of ex-military men, not the brightest, because some of the finest and cleverest officers of the last war, Daratnayaka, Prasanna Silva, Jagat Das, Shavendra Silva. Shavendra is in service, of course, but they're out of service, and I'm sure they are supportive of Gotabaya, but they're not part of this frontline political lobby. The ones who are, like Rear Admiral Sarath Veerasekara, these are extremists. The cleverer ones, like the Aratnayak and others, they're never extremists. They were very clever, very tough officers. Now, they are not overtly part of it. I mean, I'm sure they'll vote for Gota, they'll support him, help him, and so on. But the most extreme of retired military officers, some extreme members of the Buddhist hierarchy, and certain top corporate sector people and managers who are looking for expansion
or change.
Well, change for the purpose of expansion, probably under the name board of a socialist market economy. Now, of course, we need a change. I say that there's a psychological warfare operation going on because there's nothing that's happening here now that is worse than what happened when Prime Minister Wickremesinghe was in office in 2001-2004. He signed, without Chandrika's assent, a ceasefire agreement, humiliating ceasefire agreement with Velupille Prabhakaran. We suffered tremendous national humiliation at that time, and the economy was hovering between minus growth and 1 or 2% growth. In fact, the recent Department of Census and Statistics report and the central bank report said that our 3.6%, now it's projected to be 3.2 or 3.1, but the 3.6 of the last quarter of 2017 was the worst in 16 years. 16 years was 2002. So we had a bad time then, but nobody talked about a Hitler, or be a Hitler or become a Hitler, or we need a kind of a dictatorial, we need military rule, bring military rule. Nobody said that. They just got rid of the government through peaceful democratic means. They supported Mahinda Rajapaksa, and the government changed, and then the war was won, the economy was revived. So what's all this? This is a psychological warfare operation. A combination of advertising agency tactics and military psyops being used to create a notion of a crisis. There is a crisis, but it's the same kind of crisis that we had in 2001-2004. I was one of those who fought against the government at that time. I worked very closely with Honorable Lakshman Kazagam, as everybody knows. and the government was overthrown and defeated. So nobody was talking about Hitler. Why now? Because it's part of an artificially created psychosis. In order to force Mahinda Rajapaksa's hand into supporting Gota, who's not a bad guy, but these forces, what I call the dark matrix, they want to get hold of him, install him, and implement their dark vision for Sri Lanka.
Some very interesting thoughts there by Dr. Dayan Jathilka. And the question that you posed, why now? So we pose that question to you as well, why now? And we'll be back after this short commercial break. Welcome back to Vantage Point. You're joining with me, Zulfiq Fawzan, and my host, Dr. Dayan Jathilka. Doctor, now we spoke about Sri Lankan internal politics and this whole system of trying to use a psychological warfare going on to change the Sri Lankan political landscape. But then again, something related to Sri Lanka happened at the UNHRC. That is, the United States pulling out of the United Nations Human Rights Council. Now, bear in mind, they brought forward resolutions on Sri Lanka as well, and now they have withdrawn. Doctor, despite the US withdrawing from the UNHRC, those resolutions, are they still in effect for Sri Lanka, and how would it impact Sri Lanka's future?
Well, Zulfiq, there are two views in Sri Lanka on this subject, and mine is a third view. I don't agree with the two extremes.
Okay.
One view, which is rather ironic, says that, well, you know, it's good that the Trump administration withdrew. What they said about the UNHRC was right. And if they make this criticism of the UNHRC, they can't hold us to the resolution. And we should do the same and unilaterally pull out of the resolution or of the council. It's ironic because these are the same people who are critical of the resolution who are cheering the United States that fronted the resolution. Now the other lot, the others are saying, no, we have to stay with the resolution. You know, it's a good, nice resolution and we have to implement it. That is the neoliberals. The neoconservatives say Trump was right. The neoliberals say, well, let's stay with the resolution.
And your view, Doctor? And
my view is a realist view. It's a middle path, which is the United States was wrong to pull out. The UNHRC is the only parliament in the world for human rights, if you want to call it that. And just as in the case of the Sri Lankan or any other parliament, we may totally and bitterly oppose this or that bill that is voted in by parliament. But the answer is to get the numbers to try to defeat it at another time. It's not to walk out of parliament. It's the same thing in the case of the UN Human Rights Council. You have to stay engaged, you have to participate. So, I disagree with those who say that we should try to emulate the United States and pull out. You can't. In any case, we are not the United States. We are not Israel, thank God. It's counterproductive because the US pull-out has not made the US more popular. The US pulled out because it could not have its way in the UN Human Rights Council.
Just like it can't have its way in the
UN General Assembly. So, they have isolated themselves, but the US can afford to be isolated. Israel is isolated in the Human Rights Council. If we imitate or emulate those countries, we shall isolate ourselves further. That's not the way to get out of the 2015 resolution, of which I remain a strong frontline critic. Now, there are others who say this is a good resolution, we have to stay with it, and in any case the Americans will find some way of making us stick within the framework of the resolution, even though they pulled out.
Could they use the UK or Canada?
Well, they'll use the UK because it's the UK that got hold of the United States and put the US front and center. The UK has always driven these resolutions against and on Sri Lanka because of the electoral strength of the Tamil diaspora in the Westminster first past the post political system that you have in the United Kingdom. It's as simple as that. So the Tamil diaspora leverages its electoral weight in the UK. The UK leverages its special relationship with the Americans. So now the ball will go back to the United Kingdom, and the UK and Canada will probably be pushing this. Now, I think we have to wriggle out of 2015, out of the resolution. We can do it. You can't do it, and you mustn't try to do it by being aggressive like the United States and walking out. Mm-hmm. You can be firm and principled, but you have to win the majority of members of the Human Rights Council through reasoned argument and persuasion, and bring another resolution to either modify or completely repeal the 2015 resolution. That's my position. But the two extremes, the neoconservatives who are pro-Trump, pro-Netanyahu, even when they're anti-resolution, and the neoliberals who may be anti-Trump but are pro-resolution. They are both opposed to what I'm saying. But this is, I'm basing myself on my own experience in Geneva, where we succeeded in preventing a hostile resolution on Sri Lanka.
Doctor, on the same line of your international relations expertise and your posting in Geneva, there's much talk about you being made ambassador to the Russian Federation. Now,
yes,
we've also seen on several articles that more than 100 organizations are opposing your appointment.
94 individuals and organizations to which those individuals belong. So that's how it became 100. These are all what they call them. They call themselves civil society activists. This is the NGO underworld. You know, Uyangoda, Viyangoda, Gypsies, Sunil, Saman Ratnapriya, Pakisoti Saranmuthu is right, he's front and center. And the organizations are his CPA and so on and so forth. Now, these are the people who are for the 2015 resolution. If you read their petition, they oppose my role in Geneva in 2009, where I defeated the Western effort to pin a war crimes resolution on us. So they're opposed to that. They mentioned 2009.
That's the one where they tried to bring a war crimes tribunal.
That's the one where they said that in 6 months an international fact-finding team must report back, must investigate, go to the battlefield and report back. And, we defeated that 29-12. Now, the petitioners they mentioned that. And they are opposed to what I did in Geneva in 2009. They also say that I'm a supporter of Mahinda Rajapaksa, a strong supporter, which of course is true. But what has that got to do with being ambassador to Russia? I mean, I'm not representing Mahinda Rajapaksa in Russia. That's not the role of an ambassador. I represent the Sri Lankan state. They also say that my ideology is totally opposed to that of the Yahapalane. Now, I've been a critic of Yahapalane for sure, but the person who has nominated me is President Sirisena, who knows more about Yahapalane and whether my criticism has anything to do with the interests of the Sri Lankan state than the NGOs. I mean, this is politicians and political parties have fluctuating popularity in our democracy, Zulfiq, as you know. But these 94 people who have signed this petition, not one of them ever said a word against the Tigers during the war, though I did. And if you check out with the public, these are the most detested figures among the public. I mean, they are a collection of detestables. That's why I call it the NGO underworld, the most unpopular, disliked, people in society as far as the general public are concerned. So, I'm just amused by this.
So, Doctor, we'll just have to wait and see of what's going to happen. And with that, we wrap this edition of Vantage Point. And let me leave you with this saying: you can fool all of the people some of the time.
Lincoln.
You can fool some of the people all of the time, but never all of the people all of the time. Take care and good night.